Welcome to the Blue Hour, where every week Charlie and myself get together and talk about emerging trends in the tech space, and we build Chat GPT plugins. We got a great episode for you this week. We're going to talk about prompt engineering jobs, UX of chatbots, maybe some open source LLM, and then possibly some updates about my plugin on Chat GPT, PromptPerfect. First topic I got on the docket is, where are all the prompt engineer jobs? So, do you know what a prompt engineer job is?
Somebody who optimizes LLMs to elicit the best responses for like a specific context, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the way I see it, there's been a few postings of jobs in the past 6 months I've seen where companies are actually hiring prompt engineers who can come into a company and either help them build processes to like help their employees get the most out of AI, or just generally like go in there and and use prompt engineering to improve a company. And this was something that 4 months ago I thought was going to be huge. And I think I was like actively like searching job boards to see. And I've been building a lot, so I haven't really been thinking much about it. And I went to like Google job search yesterday, searched in prompt engineer because I was like, oh, I'm sure there's so many companies hiring for it. There's 4 jobs in like all of
Oh,
the
interesting.
US, which is interesting to me. I think
So you're
it's
saying that they're internal hires, they're not contractors. These are people who are hired internally to improve processes with LLMs, but then also, what was the other one? So
I
what
mean,
is
it's pretty
what are
much anything you could do. There's not enough of them for there really to be
okay?
a like a full job description, but somebody who's really good at prompting that's going to make your company better by prompting, whether that's making an entire library of prompts for your company, or helping every
Oh,
department like streamline the things they do, or building custom apps that use prompt engineering that are tailored to what your company needs. Like, it's
interesting.
yeah, people are. I mean, companies are a little behind on this. It seems like people. I think got really excited about ChatGPT and like it's going to be crazy, but now it's died down a little bit, and a lot of back to normal stuff. But the way I see it, and we talk about it a lot, is prompt engineering is kind of the future. These are natural. Like ChatGPT works through natural language processing, which means you give it instructions in natural language. Uh, but if you're not good at that, you're not getting a good output. So a lot of people will go use it once, not come back. And most people don't realize how many things you can do. I tweeted something the other day that was like, being good at prompting doesn't mean you're a good prompt engineer. Being good at prompting doesn't mean you're good at writing prompts. Being good at prompting means you're good at everything that the large language model can do, which means you can bend and
Exactly.
use a tool like ChatGPT to get anything. You could do complex math, you could write a book, you could do just like cold inbound and write it really well. You could come up with a
Hmm.
full marketing plan. You could do an insane amount of stuff if you know how to ask the right questions. And the fact that it doesn't seem like companies in general are catching up to this yet is fascinating. I think they will at some point, but it's definitely still very early.
Yeah, this relates to one of the cooler applications I've seen. It's custom chatbots, and so it effectively can replace customer success managers. So, are you saying that these prompt engineering jobs, at least one or two of them, or whatever, or like some number of them, are bringing people in house who can build something like custom chatbots? So they aggregate all of the information, all of the documentation internally, put that into some sort of prompt, such that there's now a database of internal knowledge that then can be queried by a public facing chatbot that asks questions in natural language of what's going on with the company, or maybe customer service questions, anything related to the product, and getting natural language answers from that chatbot. And if so, I think that that's kind of what you're talking about. I've seen that use case, and I've seen third parties offer that chat service, and they charge however much a month. What do you think you need to know technologically, like from a developer perspective, from an engineering perspective, in order to be able to be somebody who can create custom chatbots from that institutional knowledge? Because I think that the institutional knowledge is the easy part. You could take that and you could just literally put it into the back end of the chatbot. But ultimately, what are you writing that in, and what's the technological, like, what's the barrier to entry to be
Yeah.
like
Well,
eligible for one of these roles?
Yeah, I don't think prompt engineers are solely building chatbots. It's probably like a part maybe for some companies. And admittedly, I've only looked at like one full job description for one of these things a few months
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. Okay,
But
fair enough.
generally, it's just coming in and optimizing with prompts, whether that is a chatbot or building processes for people to use, or even training people or teaching them on how to use it. But for the tech stack you'd need for that, I mean, you'd need ChatGPT plus. Like
Yeah.
you could learn, any prompt engineer could learn how to build a custom chatbot just by spending 2 days with ChatGPT, and then you could replicate that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually tried. I was playing around with this morning before I got in to do it, like over my coffee early before work, and I was running to a little bit of a blocker because the data set I have ChatGPT plus, but the blocker is that some of, I guess what was the blocker? It was like I'm querying it on how to create chatbots, but the knowledge that it has is 2021 limited. And so I should be querying the internet to coach me through a little bit. I don't want to not dominate this at the time. I'm like a one-on-one coaching
No, no,
session
get
here.
into it,
But
dude.
like,
Get in.
so what's the best way to prompt this to get it? Like, I didn't spend more than 45 minutes, and I realized, and this relates to some of the points that I wanted to talk about, which is the UX chatbox. Like the UX of chatbots sucks, and this isn't intuitive. And it's like it's important. Like I'm learning so much just through doing, in the same way that you have, and you're like months ahead of that learning curve that I'm on.
Yeah.
And so with this in particular, coach me through how it is you'd go about with ChatGPT Plus to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
There's
notes.
I had two big ways that I would do it. Well, we're gonna record it. You don't have to take notes.
I know, but it's helpful. It's helpful for the description to be completely honest, because that way I
Oh,
don't have to. Yeah, because then I can just plug in the description into our prompt,
dude.
which then loads our prompt, our description into YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I think somebody's building a plugin where you can upload an audio file or use a link, and it'll
Oh,
give
sick.
you a description of the video, which is wild.
I have
But
a couple of those that I've used, and they're limited to the number of times you can do it a day, and they actually work off of the closed captioning, most of them, which is interesting. So it doesn't pull from the audio file itself; it pulls from the closed captioning on YouTube, which I
wow,
found
yeah,
to be interesting.
that's
Yeah, but
fascinating. Okay,
yeah,
so one thing I would do is get to the point where it doesn't have all the knowledge, and then either use a Bard or a Bing to say, how can I build a OpenAI chatbot or a Chat GPT like chatbot from scratch? Find wherever it takes you, copy that article, and feed it in where you're getting the blocker and say, based on this updated information on building chatbots from scratch, what do you think I should do? You paste it in there, hit enter, and generally it will work for you. Like
interesting.
I did a lot of similar things like that, building the plugin, going to places, especially recently with App Engine. I would go to the Google Docs, copy some information, paste it into ChatGPT, and say, I'm running into this error with my site load times based on this information from the Google's documentation. What do you think I should do to resolve it? And that works pretty well. A
Yeah,
little more manual than you'd like, but it'll do. It'll do, pig. And
yeah,
then
exactly.
the other one would be to use browsing or use a plugin. So there's two, WebPilot and Keymate.ai browse the internet. They do a pretty good
Yeah,
job. And they're plugins that are independently developed on top. So figuring out, I think building a chatbot from scratch, building an OpenAI chatbot from scratch will get you good SEO and it'll find stuff. And so you can take that query once you have the plugin downloaded and say, I want to build, could you help me? Something along the lines of, could you help me build an AI chatbot from scratch? Please search the internet for a guide on how to do this. And then help me write the code with this as like, help me write the code uh, with the intent of me uploading documents to for it to reference or something like that, and then follow that journey.
yes, this is great. This is further than I got, honestly, because my intuition isn't really there just yet.
Yeah.
Although I am getting, much more into it's becoming more intuitive to me. It really there's a severe learning curve here, and it's really fascinating to go through it just on a personal basis.
Yeah.
Because the UX is really, really bad. It assumes that you. I think that it presents itself as an oracle, which to me is really confusing. It presents itself as like this omniscient line of blinking cursor, right? It's like it just, and so I think that that's confusing because that's not at all what it is.
Yeah. I see it as like a very, very intelligent teenager, but you're like the old mentor who like gives it little bits of wisdom that shape what it does, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
it's a much better way to think about it, I think.
yeah,
It's not my intuition. I don't know why. I'm not sure where I came up with my intuition, but it's not right. It's been
yeah,
very confusing. Um, cool. That's awesome. Okay, awesome. I didn't expect to go into that, but I just took a ton of notes for myself.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
awesome.
dude, I was thinking about it the other day, and I know OpenAI probably tracks usage of people using ChatGPT. I'm
Okay.
definitely a power user because of I mean, I've built full apps, but it's taking me, hours on end to code sometimes. And so, like, I'll be
Yeah.
sitting there prompting, reprompting, figuring out what my app's doing, pasting things in, going back. And I've gotten I mean, it's just almost a natural muscle for me now. But I feel like I could, with enough hours, and there, all we have is time in this life. Like, I can pretty much do anything with ChatGPT if I have enough time.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
a lot of it's just making sure you break it down into smaller things. Uh, Also, like if you have to paste in something, like I paste in a lot of my own code, but then I figured out I can cut out parts I don't need or things like that. But there are some limits, and I think token limits will go up at some point, but you can't just paste anything in there. But with
Hmm.
these, I think with Webpilot, Keymate AI, that's super helpful. And yeah, if you ever have questions, dude, you got to
No
call me.
doubt. Yeah, I mean,
I consider myself
as
a prompt engineer now.
absolutely 100% without a doubt. I mean, you've
Yeah.
built the only ChatGPT plugin that's live in in on OpenAI's ChatGPT that's related to prompt engineering. And
Yeah.
this week, Bing announced at its build event with hundreds of thousands of software engineers there, with the CEO speaking on stage with a huge presentation with the logo of Prompt Perfect behind him.
I know,
They
dude.
announced that it's going to be compatible 1-to-1 and it's going to be launching soon, which
Yeah.
is fucking crazy.
It's wild, man. They announced it's going to
Yeah,
be a shared plugin store too. So I don't know what that exactly looks like, but I think it means
I saw
that,
that.
yeah, you can limit not going there, but if you want and you're already on ChatGPT, or I think you're going to be on Bing, which is cool.
Amazing. I think it's so cool. It makes sense that they would do it that way.
Yeah.
We've like referenced the number and we've gotten it wrong every single time. Microsoft invested $10 billion in OpenAI.
Mm,
So I've said like 100 million, 100 this.
$10
That's
billion.
1% of what it is that they actually invested.
Yeah.
Lots of money. So it makes sense that they would do a coordinated store. When I was reading all these announcements the last couple of days, I kind of realized, oh wow, this is a lot of money they put into this.
Yeah.
So it makes they're making it co-compatible, like compatible from a developer's perspective. Just everything that's built there is 1-to-1 compatible here. It's amazing. And the fact that it's a shared store means you don't even have to deploy twice, which is really cool.
No.
It's amazing. And they had made like a comment about whether or not Google's going to follow suit with the implementation of the same standard, and which is like a joke. It's like saying that the charger on the bottom of an iPhone is going to be compatible with the charger on the bottom of the Android, right? I just think
Yeah.
that's so silly that they would even say that. But I mean, maybe we're wrong and we're moving toward an open standard where everybody agrees. But that seems like the last time that happened was in the 90s or like even earlier with email, you know? uh,
Granted,
but
there is like a Google Play store, an App Store, an Android store. There are,
yeah,
they all, but they're
and
not
you can
cross
deploy on them.
compatible. You have to write
Exactly.
them differently. So we'll,
Exactly.
we'll see how that goes.
Um, nice, man. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit of an update actually
Prompt Perfect.
on
Yeah.
lots of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
Prompt Perfect, and that's
Yeah.
really what I wanted to say. I wanted to lead you into that one. What's going on with Prompt Perfect? And then here you talk about the build event, but I had to steal the thunder. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
surreal to see the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world with like you see a picture on Twitter of him with your logo in the background is incredible. Like, I didn't even I'm not even really a coder. I mean, I guess I kind of am now. I can wear that badge,
definitely
but
are.
at a developer conference, you see the logo that I created is wild.
Oh
It's been a wild ride, and things are settling down a little bit, which is good. Uh, I learned how to build a pretty good looking website this week and we're getting there. But we'll have more updates as things get more fun.
yeah. Um,
I kind of want to
in terms
talk
of other,
about UX for chatbots because I'm interested for where your thoughts are with that.
Yeah. Do you want to get us started with that? I think we were talking about it a little bit from my
Yeah.
perspective. What
Yeah,
do you think?
but a chatbot is basically just what ChatGPT is. A lot of people are building other versions, variations that are sourced off different information or on different models. But at the end of the day, it is a line that you type into, similar to the Google search. You click enter, it returns a response. You can ask more questions, and a lot of times it'll reference the conversation that you've already had up to a certain point.
Yep.
And there's a lot of them, a lot of solutions so far. But yeah, the UX, I don't know. It's very uh, untilled land when you look at it. There's not a lot of direction on what to do. There's not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's
almost none.
why I don't think people really get the fact. I got my haircut today, and the my barber was like, "Yeah, I've never even used ChatGPT," which I'm not surprised. But yeah, where's your
Yeah.
head at with it?
I mean, I think that it's really just. I mean, I talk about it a lot with a lot of different sorts of people, and consistently people tell me that they don't use it. But I think it's probably has to do with the fact that this is so reminiscent right now. The interface, the UX is like a text message. It's like our iMessage thread, right? It's like a text thread I have with somebody,
Yeah,
and I just don't know that that's really well. I just don't know. I wish that there was a little bit more like when you use Bard, it will give you some examples to click on, right? So that's a little bit more intuitive. Bing is similar; it'll provide you with some immediate options to just like try. In the same way that DALI, which is the image generator, it like gives you some prompts for like examples of things that you can create that are really creative and outlandish. And so it
yeah,
kind of gets your creative juices flowing. Whereas with ChatGPT, it's really, really plain. It's actually, when I first saw it, underwhelming, right? It's like just it looks really simple. There's so much blank space on the page before you actually type anything out.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. It just especially then taking it a step further with the plugins. The plugins are brand new. I understand that, but ultimately the plugins have no instructions at all. There's zero instruction at all on how to use them.
yeah.
And so when I'm using the browsing plugins, do I just type in search the web? Do I type in search the internet? Are those interchangeable? I don't. I just don't know. I'm figuring it out as we go because I can't find documentation.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's written technical documentation for different protocols, I that frustrates me.
Yeah.
I want to know how it works, you know?
I'd almost argue that OpenAI doesn't really want their product to be that exceptional, you know? I think they enjoy building next level AI models, but from a direct to consumer standpoint, this is cool for them and they like it. But since they're a cap profit company, I don't think they're sweating the fact that it's not the most usable thing now, especially since I'm
It's
sure they have an internal team building a good product, but for them, it's like, I'd assume not the highest priority.
because people are using the so that like do you think people are using the API in such a way that that allows for them to justify not focusing on their own UX because users are just sort of abstracting away their chat interface and they're creating their own but leveraging the LLM underneath the hood?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think they are a toolkit that a lot of people are using, and they've given the guidance that like this is how you could create. This is ChatGPT. This is a very awesome product and use case that we see, and it created this offshoot where now anybody can build a chatbot similar-ish based off of their API. You may not have access to some of the tokens, but they're really almost encouraging people to build on top of it. And I think people will still ChatGPT clearly. I think they were surprised that it got to 1 million users in 4 days. wasn't
Yeah.
their wasn't their expectation, and so it's mostly catch up. I think, and I think they created Plus because they're getting so many requests. It was insanely expensive, I'm sure. So
That
it's a
makes
way to
sense.
offset it. But I don't think they're. I think they're more on the AI research front rather than creating the best product possible, which means it's very cool because you can build on top of their API and build very great products, and you'll be they'll be making money off the API calls, and you'll be making money
Exactly.
off the thing you built, and everybody's happy and smiling, you know?
Yeah. And one thing I haven't actually looked into is if you want to leverage the API for your own small business, do you need to have ChatGPT Plus in order to there's no necessity for that.
No, you just need an open AI account and a credit card.
And a credit card for what exactly? To pay for the API calls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
And
you
you
have
can
to
do that with,
set, you have to start with a limit or a way for them to be able to charge you for any call. So if you go to platform.openai.com, that's where you go. Make sure you have an account there. I think if you already use ChatGPT, it'll just auto default to the same account. And then in the settings, you can go to API settings and stuff like that. And even as an individual, you don't have to be registered as a business. You can get an API key as an individual, which is cool.
interesting. So then why did you say earlier that I would need ChatGPT Plus in order to build the chatbot? It's just because of the access for it to actually process some of the information.
I think you want, for any coding stuff, I'd prefer to have GPT-4 access, which if you don't have Plus, you can't use ChatGPT with GPT-4 enabled. You have to use the depth like 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because ChatGPT 4 has better sort of software engineering knowledge. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
better reasoning capabilities, which just makes it a lot better at like refined
That's
things.
cool.
Yeah, I think it would be fine with 3.5, but I don't go back to 3.5, and I don't risk it unless I have to. It's done
Yeah.
really. I mean, just from experience, using it with 4 works really well for developing stuff.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. I remember actually seeing a demonstration a couple of months ago from somebody who, before 4 had come out, showing side by side the different code samples from codes, like the code samples provided based on the same prompt from 3 and 4, or
Yeah,
3.5 and 4 maybe, um, and seeing it was a significant difference in the syntax and the like efficiency of the code. I think is really what they were kind of pointing at.
yeah.
That's cool, man. Um, Anything else about UX of chatbox? Like, I think that, I mean,
I
ultimately,
think
this is solved by understanding what prompt engineering is. I think philosophically understanding what that is allows for you to really get over the UX of chatbox. And I think that also creates a chasm between the general user and people who understand prompt engineering, because that also, and then that becomes a service. And
yeah,
so it's kind of fortuitous for people like you and for kind of like us to think about these things, because we're realizing, oh, there's a business opportunity here. There's a service you can provide here that actually provides a really, really serious utility to different organizations.
yeah,
Um, but ultimately, like, so I don't necessarily think that, like, I don't know how they're going to solve the UX problem, but it does create in the interim, or maybe in perpetuity, this solution that's called prompt engineering, which we're diving into.
yeah. I'm a firm believer that anybody could build a fork of ChatGPT with UX improvements like instant perfecting of prompts, feedback on prompts if you press a button, uh, quick edits, like some cool features in there. Like that would be almost even just like a button if you connect your email before or your Twitter, and you could do
Oh,
something. You'd be like, write an email, and then you could press in there, send, via Gmail or something. Like there's UX improvements like that that OpenAI knows about for sure. They're just
of
not going to
course.
build.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would care if another person built it, because if it did really well, it would still be bubbling up to OpenAI. It's like they're an energy company, and the API
Exactly.
is the energy they're providing. So they don't matter. The more energy you use, the better.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they also are the biggest consumer of energy at the same time, which is wild.
Yeah, exactly. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Have you
But
done any reading about? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I want you to tie a bow in the thought.
yeah, you and I, with the capabilities we have and enough energy and time, could build a competitor to ChatGPT built off GPT 3.5. If we really dedicated our time, because you could figure out how to build it, but you could also figure out all these other integrations. And I don't think people look at ChatGPT and like, oh, it'd be so hard to be a competitor to it, but it's not, either to even to Bard or Google. Like it is, it's not. None of those chatbots are really that great. They're cool. I mean, they're all exceptional, but they're not that
Yeah,
great from a product perspective for a user. The chatbot, what you're saying about chatbot UX is 100% true. Like, who knows what to do when you have a blank thing? You have to train yourself. You have to figure out stuff. You have to go do research. Like
exactly.
you could solve all those problems and build a really amazing chat sort of 360-degree app. It's very possible.
But is the LLM open source at OpenAI? It's not. It's closed. It's closed source, right? So what do you mean based on that? So what you would need to do is you'd need to
We're talking about
your
UX, right? We're talking about the way it works. So you could build on top of their API, which utilizes all the same reasoning that ChatGPT does. You have
Yes. Okay.
access to that reasoning engine, and you can
Okay.
literally build a clone. The way I mean, their chat endpoint is what my apps are built off of, which means it
Hmm.
sends in a prompt, it returns an answer as you give it a message, which their message is like, you're a helpful assistant with your knowledge date cut off here. Like they give it some context on how it should act. So you give it like a message for the system. And then based off that, it's just a back and forth. It
Hmm.
runs, yeah, which is pretty incredible. So that's why all
Is
these
that
chat.
front end of the chatbot open source? So you can look at the source code for the chatbot.
No, I don't think so. You can't.
That's so yeah,
Yeah.
it's so cool that you know. So how do you know? Am I? I thought that by virtue of the fact that you know that it says I'm a helpful chatbot or whatever it is, that means that you can see the back end of ChatGPT.
They say in their documentation, this is like based on how we do chat GPT. It starts with this.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. So interesting.
You can
I got
also, fun
yeah. Go ahead.
thing, you can go, if you have an account, you can go to playground.openai.com, and you can go to chat, and you can actually insert a system message, which is that message on the left side, and then do a chat on the right. So
Oh,
you
cool.
can run tests on what it would be like. You could make the system message be like, you are a British assistant, and
Yeah,
it'll
exactly.
respond like a British guy. So you can play around with that, but also you can build that into the back end of apps extremely easy.
Cool. So interesting. And I just got confused, I guess, because you had said fork it, which I think of as like in terms of like Ethereum being forked, which is like the fact that it's open source makes it
Yeah,
like.
I meant more like
But
forking the concept, not the actual
exactly.
code. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I misunderstood. My bad. Awesome, man. Yeah, it's great.
shit gets me jacked up. I don't know if you could tell, but
Me too. Yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's absolutely fascinating. The one of the coolest use cases is I've been going through for work and porting over a lot of documentation into Notion, and Notion is really dynamic in its architecture of databases. And I think that it would be really useful. There already is a Notion AI component or like a product, I guess, that they release, which is allows for you to ideate, create sort of back and forth creative content, but it's not terribly useful and from what it is that I want to see. And what I want to see is if I have a database of organization names with a contact and an email address and maybe even a phone number, but the phone number is not as relevant for this use case. And then I can write in copy into the database. I want for it to be able to, even if I don't have, maybe I have a quick description of what it is that I want the copy to be about. And that's separate for each and every one of these companies, but maybe it's similar for most of them because they're tagged in a way that like this company and this company are like, they are in X vertical and these 5 companies are in Y vertical. And that could be something that's then pulled as a customization for the email in terms of the copy itself, but doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting from my perspective. I provide this spreadsheet and I then have Auto GPT in some instance or like some version of Auto GPT. I want an agent effectively, or whatever the LLM is. I want an agent to be able to query the database, draft the emails, and queue them in my inbox so that I can then go through and edit them one by one and hit send. That would
yeah,
be an extreme time saver for somebody like me.
yeah,
That's been the majority of my career. It's like 8 years of doing that pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah, man.
So yeah, I don't know how that is possible. I think with agents it would be, but I don't know how to build
Yeah, there's one way to figure out how to build it.
that. True.
That's a good prompt. I mean, they
Exactly.
have like easy beginner courses on using Auto GPT or Baby Chain or Baby AGI is the other one.
Yeah.
But I think what you'd want for it to do is you'd run a command if you had all of that to whatever this was, an agent or model, and be like, run through my database and for each person draft an email in my Gmail inbox for me to reference. And I think it could do, and you'd have to give it more context on what you want the email to be
Yeah.
like. But you could be like, insert their first name with dear this, add a few things, add a cute note, write it in a professional style, tone, whatever. Uh, yeah. And then you could just have that prompt in the back end and, and just fix one little part and press boom.
Can you imagine? I mean, that would save me some days 7 hours, some days two.
Yeah.
In my life, it would have saved me a year of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's fucking build
the
it, dude.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that no one expects from a managerial perspective at the companies where I work for this to be done automatedly. And so there would be no expectation that I need to get more work done. It would allow for me to do my job existing in less time, which would be very convenient.
100% of the output and 10% of the time.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
that's the key, man. That's what we're going for.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we'll spend that other 90% on the beach drinking Mai Tais, drinking
Off the
water
Lake
straight from
Jerome.
a coconut.
Spend the rest of the time building other GPT derived or LLM
That's
derived bots to make more money
there you go.
and improve the UX even more significantly.
Yeah. It is wild.
Uh,
I think like 2 months ago, I was like, you could somebody could just build a Chat GPT competitor and nobody's going. I had this idea for an afternoon and maybe we'll build it. Maybe we'll focus on it. We'll see.
yeah, that's cool. Nice, man. Well, that's all. I mean, there's a couple other things, but I like what we spoken about. Anything else you wanted to go through?
No, that's it. Uh,
Cool.
yeah, but the El Nino winds are bringing me a hot take. I don't know if you have one.
They get better and better every week.
Yeah, the improv, dude.
Hot
I'll go.
takes. Do you have one? Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've got one. So since I've launched this, I've been like daily going through to measure inbound on Twitter about PromptPerfect, and most of it's positive and just general people copying and pasting what other influencers are doing about
Yeah,
ChatGPT plugins. But there's some negative and like people who don't get it, which part of the reason I've never been active on social is I don't really want strangers on the internet to get under my skin, and it can be a little like hard not to let it. Uh,
of
but
course. Yeah.
yeah, the internet is cool for a lot of reasons, but it's uncool for a lot of reasons as well. And one of those is taking things too personal from the internet. Um, so my hot take is don't spend too much time caring about what people on the internet think.
Yeah, dude. I think the thing about the internet is it democratizes access to a microphone.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got a megaphone, just like one of those. Have
Yeah.
people been talking smack about Prompt Perfect? I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah. Only a woman who compared it to Juicero, which was a company that was selling like $500 juice
Yes.
machines. And she's
Yes.
like, it uses GPT to use GPT. And I like commented on it to be like, I'd be like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. OpenAI could build this, but also I think you're missing the point that like there's not tools for
Interesting.
this, and it's a very good use case for the majority of people who don't care about prompting. She she commented back. She was like, I don't understand it, and I was like, I don't know why I tried. And then
Yeah, exactly.
the founder of a competitor who has a prompt, I think Chrome plugin or like a plugin for Chrome, uh, posted something that was like his hot take of, he's like, does this thing even work? Like, I haven't seen one example, which he clearly hadn't used it, which is funny. But also, he's like, none of these examples are impressive to me, which I was like, oh, should I respond to this guy? I was like in my head, like fucking shadow boxing this dude mentally. And then I was like, honestly, he didn't use it. It's a better product. Nobody's liked this thing. And also, what does it matter if he doesn't like it? I built this
Plugging, dude.
for the people like the guy that cut my hair today, like, or for people who don't want to type out a paragraph long prompt to get a good output. They can type one
Mhm.
word, a sentence, and get a pretty solid output,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt, man. That's awesome. I had no idea that that was even happening. You got to let me know so we could fire you up. So you're sending off gifts to these people on Twitter. I'd love to see the way that you fire back at them.
Dude, I saw a
I'm just
LinkedIn
kidding.
post yesterday that said, well, Facebook had to sell Giphy because of some like
Oh,
monopoly thing in the
oh,
UK,
I knew that.
and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
sold it for a big loss. But part of their argument for them to not have to sell it was that GIFs are seen as cringe by the younger generation and that they're for boomers. And I was like, God damn, dude, I use GIFs all the time.
Are we boomers for 32?
No way, I mean, we might be boomers. I don't think so though. GIFs are funny.
Gifs are amazing. I say
Just
gifs all
another
the time.
reason why we fucking hate Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody sent me. There's a gift that you might know. There's a dude standing right in the center of the frame, and it's like from a '90s or '80s movie. And it's like cold outside. He's wearing like a wool jacket. He's watching. And he's very, very intently looking, and something really positive happens. You have no idea what it is. And he's like,
Yes. Yes. He's like in the city, right? Yeah.
exactly, so happy, and like he's just so
Yeah.
proud. And somebody had sent me they'd be like, "Oh, I finished the Wednesday New York Times crossword puzzle today, like for the first time." And I sent them just that GIF because I was doing work, and I was like, "Oh, it's so good."
Yeah. I think gifting is an art form. That's my hot
I
take,
couldn't agree
actually.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a good one. Yeah. Mine is related to something we've been talking about for months. I've used some of the hot take times to talk about this, but I've been trying to organize my stuff and using different things like calendar and then a daily reminder tool. And then also, I recently switched my note taking stuff from one sort of tool, which I don't want to talk smack about, to Notion. And Notion is awesome. I recently put together a document, a Notion doc, actually for this podcast, so people can look through and look at the different topics that we discuss each episode, categorized by topic. Also, look at the descriptions that we've created on YouTube and Buzzsprout, and find the links there too. And just a little short write up about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So that was like my test of like, can I use Notion? Took a few hours, and now I've been using it. I've been porting over all my existing stuff. I've got a few different gigs I'm juggling, and this allows me to like aggregate all of them, tag them in different ways, and then get things done much more effectively. I've got like a column for how long it'll take me, and then I'm creating little timers for myself. One thing I really want to get though is like an hourglass, so that you can flip it over, like a 30-minute hourglass. You just flip it over, and then
Yeah.
it goes like, you know that your time is elapsing because the hourglass is done. Do you have one?
That's a great idea, Charlie. Boy's got
Oh,
a 30 and a fiver. Look at that.
no way. That's awesome. I had no idea you
I
had
don't
one.
use it as much as I should. I should send it to you. Or maybe this will
Oh,
be
they're
my
so cool.
inspiration to start using it more.
I've wanted one of those for a while. Yeah, I was recently in a sauna,
This would
which
be
I don't
the
get to go into
funniest
this
way
often.
to measure the time of our podcast, by the way. It's like we have to finish.
Before the sand elapses.
Or
Well, we
we do
both
little
need
like
one.
YouTube shorts where this is in frame and we're like, we only have this long to talk about it.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, so I think that like time management and like having somebody like keep yourself accountable is like, it just makes me so much happier.
Yeah.
Also, another hot take: if you can't remember something and you really want to like ideate on something, go for a walk. Go for a walk around the block. I was able to think of some of the things I needed to think about today because I just wanted to walk. It was really helpful.
Now, are you listening to music on this or you going naked?
No phone. I struggle with that because I want to write down what it is that I remember on the phone,
Yeah.
but I go no phone, just keys in my pocket, and then maybe I'll bring a couple bucks and get a cup of coffee just so I can like make it more of like a something to do with my hands.
Yeah.
But
That is, do you wear the AirPods just so people don't talk to you?
no
I
one
would.
wants to talk to me in New York City. No one's talking to me. I
Yeah.
promise you.
About that, not writing it down, I have a firm belief that if something is a good enough idea, it'll be implanted enough in your brain that you won't be able to forget about it.
I like that. I
Yeah.
kept repeating it to myself over and over, and I sat down at the desk and I had 3 points and I forgot the second. But then I was able to, because I had done so much like recall practice on the walk, I was able to find it after a couple minutes. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
agree with you. It also requires you to like really think things through so that they are meaningfully. If it's meaningful enough, you will remember. I like that.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, cool, awesome. This has been a good one. I think it's pretty cool that we've completely pivoted the pod into being pretty much
Mhm.
about this emerging tech, which is brand new and really interesting. So I'm pretty pumped on it
Yeah, for real. I mean, if cool crypto stuff comes up, maybe we can talk about it. But for now, I
for sure.
mean, that's
A lot of
very
copycats.
enveloping my life. Yeah.
Exactly, it's awesome. We put out a little clip of our hot take a couple weeks ago, which was specific to like how things are like kind of going in crypto and how it's kind of underwhelming. But you have to
Yeah.
check it out to see it. You know, but that's like a little 9-minute clip, I think. So, but awesome, sweet. So shout out to Josiah Soren for the intro tunes, and yeah, man, catch you back here next week. Ciao.
Ciao.